if something I can say will keep someone from getting there through stubbornness or just naivete, great. That would be even one person would be worth it.
Well,
That's how many.
I know for a fact that I'm already that one person because of the knowledge and experience that you've poured into me. You've already helped change my life for the better. So have you ever faced challenges so overwhelming that you questioned if you could ever rebuild your life? Today, I'm sitting down with Bryan Seely, a cybersecurity expert and Marine Corps veteran whose story is one of incredible resilience. From battling drug addiction to exposing vulnerabilities in the FBI and Secret Service, Bryan has seen both rock bottom and professional triumph. Now, as a public speaker and consultant, Bryan's story proves that even in our darkest moments, we can rebuild our lives by trusting ourselves and embracing vulnerability as a strength. Get ready to hear an inspiring conversation with my friend and fellow speaker, Bryan Seely, whose story is a true testament to the power of overcoming self-doubt. Bryan, thank you so much for being here today. I love it.
It's my pleasure.
Oh my goodness. Well, it has been a long, hot minute since I've actually seen you in person because you're still on the West Side over in the Seattle area.
Right.
And we met a couple years ago because we had a friend, a mutual friend that he knew I was becoming a keynote speaker and I had written a book. And he was like, I think you should meet somebody who is also a keynote speaker and is writing a book and has just this extraordinary life story. And immediately I was like, oh, I want to meet this guy just because of all of the highlights that you've had. And I wanted to meet you. And so we set up that time. We introduced ourselves and it was pre-COVID. So it was like, it was right in that middle time. But I was super excited to hear your story and how you could help mentor me, because in all seriousness, you became a mentor for me within the keynote speaking and within the publishing of a book as well. So it is my pleasure to have you on here and for you to help share your story and reach people like you've helped me. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, we had a mutual friend. I got into a car accident and had neck problems and concussion issues, and like my hands were shaking and I couldn't like do buttons. Like it was bad. And our mutual friend was a chiropractor. I'm laying on the table talking about it, and he mentioned it. I'm like, yeah, of course. And then realizing our friendship's been that good since then, it was worth getting into the car accident for sure. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do it again to try and meet someone else. I've already met you, so I don't have to do that again. But I've had some very good luck with getting into keynote speaking, falling into it. Really, like it wasn't an intentional plan. It was giving a TED talk about a topic that someone wanted to hear, and that sort of led to another thing, and then people paying me to do it. And I'm glad I can be useful and helpful. Anybody who's wanting to learn that kind of stuff, it's always fun to pass on information and see other people figure out what they like to do.
Well, I think it's interesting because what a lot of people seem to forget is that most people want to know that they make a difference in this world. And the best way to do that, I've found, is to be able to share your experiences and your stories and your knowledge. And if you have some kind of value that you can give to other people, that really resonates with people. And if people are willing or vulnerable, as Brene Brown would say, or something like that, that if you're vulnerable enough to ask for help, most people are willing to help. And
Yeah.
you were one of those people with me, and you did it. And you were so open to meet with me, and you listened to my story, and you were like, this is what I would do. I would do X, Y, and Z. And I became your mentee, and we're the same age. It was the coolest thing because it's like, it doesn't matter how old somebody else is, or if they're younger, if they're older, what their experience is. If you're willing to ask for help, most people are willing to help if you ask them. And you were that person, and I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure. Like we've got different career trajectories that kind of, lots of my stuff was more accidental. I'm very lucky to be where I'm at, given how many mistakes I've made. And believe me, it's a lot. But that's the only way I seem to learn. Other people learn from other people's like cautionary tales, but I think those people will become accountants. I don't know exactly who those people are because none of them, I'm not friends with any of them. Being able to figure out that I was good at speaking, figuring out I was good at cybersecurity and solving puzzles, and I like helping people. That mission is more galvanized over the last few years, and spend my time trying to fix problems, give people advice, doing a couple speeches a month, traveling mostly domestic, but some international, like going to New Zealand and Singapore this year and Dubai, and being able to talk about what hackers are up to and how to defend yourself, because every single day it gets worse, it seems.
Sure.
And it's nice to be able to be useful in a way that a lot of people need help with, and there's just not enough experts in the field to kind of go around.
Well, and you are good at it, right? And you're naturally good at that. You found a problem and you solved it. And then you shared that that solution with multiple people, including multiple agencies. And so I would love to hit on that. Like, how is it that, so the whole idea of our podcast is navigating the no, like what is your biggest failure or your rejection or your self-doubt, right? And I've always been interested because when I find that somebody does something, there's a reason that you did it. And so you hacked in to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
No, Secret Service.
The
No,
Secret
I
Service.
wiretapped the Secret Service and the FBI, which is actually worse, I think, than what you said. But it sometimes
did someone challenge you and you were like, somebody said, no, you can't do that? And you're like,
no,
oh, let me
no,
prove
I'm
wrong.
just,
What was the reason?
I'm just dumb. It was the smartest and dumbest thing I've ever done, because it was kind of it was trying to solve a problem that exists in mapping directories like Google Maps, Yelp, anything that has a business ranking system based on reviews or whatever. People found ways to sort of cheat the system everywhere.
Loophole it.
Right. And find a way to get more business calls for themselves over somebody else who's actually a legitimate business. And so scammers and lead generators and all these different people are doing this type of thing in 30, 40, 50 industries. And I wanted to help fix that because it's kind of annoying to watch bullies get away with stuff. And Google just sort of dismissed it. They're like, we're Google and you're you. Not really good. Just, all right, go do your thing. So I made some funny business listings to try to call attention to it. Like I made a South Park reference to a concentration camp in North Korea. Like I renamed it to like a South Park joke. And the Westboro Baptist Church became an adult toy store for a while. And then the Library of Congress became the Zoolander School of Kids Who Can't Read Good. And this is all
so tiny, right?
Right. It needs to be at least 3 times that big. It all on Google Maps, and people would find it, but it's not really anything significant, but it makes a difference because everyone trusts Google and the information you're getting from them. So to prove that was one step further into I wouldn't do that in my car kind of territory. And I created a fake listing for the Secret Service and the FBI, one in Washington, D.C. and one in San Francisco, at the exact same place as the real one. And then took a phone number from like a Ring Central voice over IP service where you can record calls and forward the calls to whomever you want. I could have answered and pretended to be the FBI or Secret Service, but I just forwarded it to the regular switchboard and then got rid of the original listings by flagging them as spam. And it worked really, really well. And I didn't think that far ahead because I guess I just didn't think it was going to work. I was that frustrated at Google telling me it wasn't a big issue when thousands of business owners all over the country are going out of business as locksmiths and other things because of competitors taking all of their work, and these people have lost everything. And consumers are being, targeted and screwed over too. So there's that sort of indignation of like, I don't care how many people are telling me that it's not true. I know it's right. And I stood up for that. And so navigating that no was like, no, I'm not going to accept that answer.
Sure.
I probably should have in most cases when it involves wiretapping federal agencies, because that's a huge problem. They don't like that at all. And So I walked into the Secret Service office to tell them, and spent maybe 15 minutes just sort of explaining the whole thing. And they're just looking at me like, you're an idiot. We get out. Like, we
They didn't
don't,
believe you. They couldn't
yeah.
comprehend.
No, they comprehended. They were tracking all of that, but they just thought I was a tinfoil hat crazy person.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I get it. You guys just are just trying to get rid of me. I totally understand. However, I can prove it in less than 5 minutes. And if I can't, I'll leave. And so the three agents and me, they're all in suits and they've got their little earpieces. And I said, call the DC office of the Secret Service. And that's the only instructions I gave the guy. So he pulls his cell phone out and taps on it a little bit. And I'm betting that he's going to use Google, either a
Mhm.
search or the map, to type in something like Washington, DC Secret Service.
Mhm.
That result will get the maps listing. He'll push the call button and then he'll talk to the person. So he puts the phone up to his ear. Yeah, no, I'm just, this is Agent so-and-so, but he knows the guy. They've met before. They recognize each other's voice. And so it was just a quick, yeah, I'm just investigating something.
Sure.
Hangs up the phone. Now my phone gets a notification saying you've received a new inbound phone call to your marketing campaign, Secret Service. Would you like to listen to the call? Oh yeah, I would. I want to do that. And then push play and then push speaker. And now we hear the phone ringing and we hear the guy going, Secret Service. And then we hear the guy now we're all next to.
No way.
And then all of them lost their sense of humor real fast. I didn't know that they had one to begin with, but it was definitely different after that, because then they took all my stuff.
Took your stuff,
And
but they didn't put you in handcuffs.
no handcuffs. They told me I was not being detained or under arrest, but they did give me a form that said, these are your Miranda rights. But we don't think you're smart enough to follow them because, you're here for reasons.
So
So
it blew your mind. Like you did not think that far in the future, like this is going to happen and this is the next step. It was just, you were just kind of playing it by ear.
Yeah. This wasn't a well thought out plan.
I love it.
Because I like doing interviews with people who are like, man, that was a really good way to get into cybersecurity. I'm like, you think that was a plan, man? Like, that was not the way to do that.
There's more ideal ways of doing so. I'm assuming.
It's the equivalent of just the worst possible idea and then it working out 1 in a million because there wasn't any criminal intent. And because it was so dumb, but they're like, you came here, you didn't try to sell it, you didn't try to like make any money off of it, you weren't trying to extort anybody, you just wanted to fix this issue. They ended up yelling at Google. I was in the guest suite for about 4 hours, explaining and demonstrating. Yeah. It's not much of a suite, it's more like a large broom closet with no windows. And it takes 4 hours to do it because they wouldn't let me on their Wi-Fi. Like I had to connect on my phone to my computer. It's like they didn't trust.
And this is several years ago. It wasn't like,
yeah.
I mean, it's much easier now. I can totally say. I've been in a guest suite myself, actually. In our martial arts school would always train in Canada as well, and so we would cross border and we would perform in these gashukus or inside these like I guess competitions and things. And I brought over in a truck certain weapons, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together that I couldn't cross borders with a weapon for a martial arts defense, and I had to sit inside a suite myself for about 3 hours. And so it was like, I just didn't think about that. It didn't cross my mind. So I understand the suite, but I'm glad you made it out of it. And it seems like I think what I love about the story is that you didn't have this intent of doing so, but because of that challenge, you learned certain things and it actually opened up doors for you. It was a setback, but at the same time, it opened up these doors that gave you new opportunities to get into public speaking and to find a profession and a skill set that is bringing you not only financial health, but at the same time, it's like you're bringing awareness and you're helping other people's lives change for the positive as well.
And because of the way that cybersecurity has gotten so much attention because of how problematic it is, I get phone calls all the time from people who find me or see me on the news and have some weird obscure question, or friends are like, hey, we just got hacked, or my cousin's getting bullied, or it's one thing or another. It's an opportunity to be able to help in a lot of different obscure sort of ways that I just had no idea I'd get to be this useful for people. And that's it's kind of a dream come true.
Oh,
It's been an interesting 10 years since that TED Talk wiretapping situation.
well, I think you're making a difference, because I know that through our conversations and brainstorming with you speaking and such, it's like people are bringing you in because you do have a certain skill set, like Liam Neeson. But at the same time, it's like you have this knowledge and experience that you can share to help people. Do you ever get, I don't want to say catfish, but do you ever have to question things that you get in an email and you're like, is this real? Or do people try to pull pranks on you?
Oh
Or is
God,
it so
yes.
easy for you to see it and you're like, that's red flagged? Like
Doesn't
immediately I
matter.
know.
It doesn't matter because everyone gets tired. Everyone makes mistakes. So the criminals get more and more creative, and they try to do new things. And sometimes it's your buddies, sometimes it's somebody who's an actual threat against you. You're not just safe in numbers. Like someone's coming after you for a vendetta,
Mhm.
um, like Liam Neeson. Like
Mhm.
after the first movie, he got his wife gets kidnapped, and then daughter again, and like nobody calls like protective services at some point and be like, dude, you can't have everyone just getting kidnapped all the time. Like someone needs to do something. But it yeah, people try. I've had the cops show up at my door, Homeland Security and the DEA knocked on my front door and said someone ordered a large quantity of GHB to my address to me. And I said, what's a large quantity of GHB? How much is even that? Why would and they're like, you sure you don't have any roommates that might be. I'm like, I'm clean and sober for a number of years, and I don't think my roommates are. I think the little one gave up drinking. He's 5, and like the 12-year-old, I knew she was up to something, but I don't think it was this bad. And they
Sure.
look through my front window, and it's just all kids' toys, and it's just a single dad in his house, and so they just, if they're knocking, they might not think it's you. As that's what I kind of was able to determine. Somebody was mad that um, I guess, screwed up their way of making money illegally.
Hmm.
Uh, I never really figured out who, but after the wiretapping thing, I got death threats because people who were using the loopholes that I sort of identified, they didn't get to use them for a while, and the products a lot of things got fixed. Google did a lot of changes, and so yeah, there were death threats that the Secret Service investigated, and then pulled offline really fast. So it was like 15 minutes,
Mm.
and never heard anything about it after that. But yeah, people don't like losing money,
Yeah.
and sometimes to do good, it takes it's not going to be easy.
Well, and I think it's sad because as an entrepreneur or self-employed person or contractor, you constantly receive these like I want to say proposals of like, hey, I will get you Google listed, I will get your ranking
Right.
system up, I will get your SEO up, and it's like as a self-employed person, I hear that and I see that and I'm like, "Ooh, what's the best answer? Should I invest in that?" And some of it's real and some of it's not real. And I'm assuming that you've come across certain things that you can tell people like that is bogus, or don't go with that, or that is a real formula and I would do that. Like, or do people ask you questions like that? Or
Yeah,
and do
it's
you
in
find value in that?
yeah, there's a lot of different things that people can do, and they don't know where to look yet or how to determine whether something's a scam yet. And so when someone gets an email that has like the little lock and it looks like it's from HTTPS links,
Yeah.
thinking, oh, that means it's secure and that's safe. No, no, it doesn't. It just means somebody who's a scammer got the little lock thing now, because they're realizing that that's the bar they need to cross to determine whether they're a scammer or not. And so the bars, or the target's always changing, and what people know collectively They just have to stay a little bit ahead of it.
And
It's
are you
good.
saying like business wise, or are you just saying like
Consumers or
personally
business
consumer?
wise, everybody from like a collective level of knowledge about cybersecurity. But if you walked up to a van while you're walking downtown
I
and
can
it's
see this
like,
story going many directions. Continue.
correct. That's why we're friends. But somebody's selling something out of the back of the van, you're like, oh, that's going to be stolen, because he doesn't want to stay in one location with all of this stuff if he's on the up and up.
Mhm.
So you kind of know, like, this is a temporary thing. He's only been here a few minutes. The engine's still running. He's checking his watch. He's trying to sell this stuff for really cheap. It's either stolen or counterfeit. And then he's off and completely, there's no accountability.
Mhm.
If a website pops up, most people don't know. You can figure out pretty quickly when that website was built or their certificate was issued to tell you that it's a real place or it's secure,
Mhm.
and who registered it. So if somebody's hiding their identity and the ownership of the website, it doesn't mean it's shady, but that's one possible clue along with a few other ones. So people fall victim to it because they just don't know where to look, don't know what to look for, and it's the same reason people don't change their own oil. It might know how to, but it's a pain in the butt. So you
Mhm.
get someone else to do it.
So, and obviously that's a service, right? But
Right.
would you tell anybody like just use common knowledge and just be careful and maybe do a quick little checkup on those people? Is that what you would suggest?
You didn't win the lottery in any country you've never been to. There's no courier that's going to be sending money, but he needs a flight. So you have to pay for the flight and pay for the cardboard going into the big check. Like, it doesn't,
But it's
people fall for it all
so
the
I
time.
so want to make $1 million just for forking over $10,000, right? That's
Right.
pretty sad.
Why would they give you $1 million? That seems, no one is doing that.
Yeah.
People aren't going out of their way to just give people money. That's never how it's going to be. But suddenly people can lie to you on the internet over an email, and we want to believe it
Hmm.
because I think collectively life's gotten stressful for everyone to a level that we haven't really ever experienced. There's so many inputs, there's so much access and communication. We're lonelier still, more stressed out, more busy, and we're less able to determine whether something's a scam or not. And so you'll meet someone on a dating site. Dating romance scams are some of the biggest scams out there and cost people the most.
I have plenty of friends who have actually done that. I
Sending money to a random person who needs
or
it for an
pretend or
operation, or their mother, or
absolutely.
their, I've heard stories of soldiers, people pretending to be soldiers trying to get back, and they can't catch a flight and their unit abandoned them. It's like, are you saying you're a POW? You were left in a foreign country as an American soldier? Who's believing this? A lot of
A
people.
lot of people. Yeah. Well, and it's such a great, it's a story that brings people in. And I mean, and you're great at that too. Like when you speak, you tell a story and that makes the audience lean in. And it's very, I mean, that's captivating. And I think a lot of people do fall for that. Um, and it's just interesting. It's crazy that there's so many different lives that can be affected by that. But I want to look at your life and I want
Sure.
to know how you feel about this because when I speak and someone introduces me, they're like, our next speaker, Blue Stiley, is X, Y, Z. He did these things. I thought I had a long list. You have a long list of accomplishments. And
Yeah, but
it is
we could do this all
amazing. Every
day. I mean,
time I
like,
hear that, I'm always like, oh my gosh, Bryan has done so much. And it's interesting that you and I have said, I mean, you grew up in Japan. I
right.
love Japan. We can speak Japanese from now on if you
We
want, but
lived
I
there
don't
at the
think our
same
listen.
time for at least a couple year overlap while you were studying in college.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting that you have this wealth of knowledge and experience and stories, and you get up and you speak on it. And I know for a fact that you've hit rock bottom on certain things. And I know that you have faced multiple
Mm,
challenges and it's not given to you. And I would love to hear what some of the hardest no's you've
mm,
received or you've experienced, whether that is in your speaking world or whether that is through drugs or whether that is through
Sure.
Any being a Marine, anything like that. I would love to cap on a couple of those negative no's that you've heard that have actually made you stronger and improved your life to become who you are today, so that when someone does introduce you, that list just keeps getting longer, Bryan, and I love it.
Yeah, it's whenever I have to explain who you are, it's like he's one of my favorite people. He's obnoxiously nice, and it's not fair that he's also really good looking and also super nice and talented and good to his friends and generous. And it's like just like he's the Bowflex guy. Anybody who has abs shouldn't be funny and nice too. Like that's you're not allowed to have it all, man.
But I am an
Uh,
uber Star Wars fan, so there's one more for
that's
you.
not a negative.
Okay.
Unless you're like a diehard Star Trek fan and
I
you're
was
like,
gonna
it
say
has
a
to be one or
Trekkie.
the other.
I was gonna say a Trekkie.
I like both of them. Like what's not to love? It's more tech stuff.
I spoke at a Comic-Con this year, and I did a panel, and there was a Trekkie in the audience, and I was like, oh, this is gonna go so many different directions. I know it. And because it's yin yang on that one. I love it.
And I've never had a problem meeting. I like both franchises. I mean, the first prequel one, meh, but I mean, there's certain things, but I'll watch them all day long and put them on repeat. Same with like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Um, so
Your hardest
my
no's.
my I left high school in Japan at 17, ended up not doing well in college, starting drink too much. Figuring out what that was all about was like, okay, I was too young to leave high school at 17, go to the States where I feel like a foreigner here still sometimes, or quite
Mm.
often. And it's not where I feel home and comfortable. I have no idea how anything works. Getting a job is different. Riding the trains. Oh, wait, there are no trains. There's no subway. I grew up in Tokyo where you never needed a car if you didn't have one. And it just the culture shock and adjustment turned into alcohol and drugs pretty quickly. I joined the Marine Corps. I right after 9/11 got out, got into computer security or computers just in general, but just didn't have. There was never a moment where I was like, all right, this is what my next move will be, and this is how I'm going to get there. I don't know. I couldn't even put that thought together. And I kind of figured out why at 30, I was diagnosed with ADHD and I got medicated. And within getting medicated, I was going through a divorce. I got clean and sober within a year and wrote a book, wiretapped the Secret Service, and completely changed my career and got like 7 different certifications and changed the whole trajectory of everything. There hasn't been tons of no's in terms of other people saying, no, you're not good enough. You can't be on this, rowing team in this movie. Like
Mhm.
you can't be in the football team, Rudy. Like it's never been so much of that, but mostly in my own head, dealing with a negative voice that tells you you're not good enough. You're not as, you've screwed up for too long. Everyone else is farther ahead of you. You'll never catch up. I have narcolepsy and ADHD. Marine Corps was sort of it wasn't like a huge life-changing long career. Being a drug addict was a big, I want to say pill to swallow, but maybe not the right analogy.
Mhm.
I had to get okay with a lot of things before other people were going to get okay with them. So I would hide who I was from most people. I just wasn't comfortable with, I didn't like myself. That's pure and simple. I just didn't like myself. And it's only been recently that that's been a consistent thing that I've had been able to do is
Begin
be
to
okay,
look.
being by myself, liking what I do, liking what I'm about, knowing what those things are, and then having shortcomings and going, it doesn't mean you're a piece of shit if you miss a meeting or you forget something in the microwave for 3 hours and it's like, oh, I'm such an idiot, and like beating
Mhm.
yourself up for dumb stuff. It's like that doesn't need to happen. Brené Brown has been a huge influence for me I got introduced to her by my therapist and find out she's also a Harry Potter nut and also an addict in recovery. And famous people have been in addiction recovery for a long time and they're not ashamed of it.
Mhm.
And so getting okay with it myself and figuring out, okay, I need to come to some sort of terms with all this stuff so I can combat that voice in my head that is literally just sitting around going, "You're a piece of shit. Hey,
Mhm.
hey, are you listening? Hey, fuck you." Like
Mhm.
it's always there and always trying to screw with you. And if you don't know to fight back, you might find yourself believing some things about yourself that will. I mean, I think that voice is in all of us. I think to some degree it's trying to kill us and
Well,
isolate us from other people.
how do you tell that voice to calm down though? How do you tell what was the turning point that you started to tell yourself? Like, was it through confidence, gaining that confidence? Because I don't believe that confidence is a born trait. I think it comes from learned experiences. And it's like the more you do something, the more practice you get, the better you're going to get at, the more you
Yeah.
start to see that you are valuable, that you are worthy, right? That you do have this experience, you have this ability to make a difference in people's lives. Like, what was that little turning point for you? Was it becoming clean and sober? Was it
Oh,
the
the
smack across
voice.
your face?
No,
How do you
the
talk to that
voice was
voice?
it was after a suicide attempt 7 years ago. So 8 years ago, my stepdaughter, who was my foster kid, was trafficked and spent 6 weeks looking for her, found her, kind of like the movie Taken, people have tried to compare to. And um, I think I'm about the same height as Liam Neeson, but I don't have the sexy accent. So I got to work on the sexy accent. But he just from that side, a Marine hacker saves his daughter. It's a movie, but in real life, it's the beginning of a lot of trauma and nightmares and not knowing how to deal with it and going, wait a minute, why am I feeling guilty for not knowing how to deal with this? We weren't even taught how to balance our checkbooks in school.
Mhm.
Like, what day of training did I miss that I was supposed to learn this? Oh, wait, no one's supposed to know this. You're not supposed to be good at just massive amounts of trauma right off the bat. It's a very learned skill, but the voice in your head isn't exactly kind, and it knows everything about you. So my daughter rescued in the end of January that year. Fast forward to August, and I couldn't take care of my kids anymore. I had a 2-year-old and a 8-year-old, and then my 16-year-old was in rehab, and I had no money left, no food left to feed them, and having to face like, all right, you failed. You couldn't keep your kid safe. She went missing. You couldn't rescue her in time to like save yourself. You haven't been able to make the nightmares go away. You haven't been able to provide an income. And now you're losing the other two things that matter the most in your life. You're done. That's it. Game over. And then
Rock,
that's
rock bottom for you.
close because that's when the voice I didn't realize you need to fight was like, dude, you're an addict. You have ADHD. You're constantly forgetting to make doctor's appointments or, pick up stuff at the dry cleaner. They would do better if they had two whole parents who chose them through foster, like adoption. And it's going to be rough for them. So, what's the most compassionate thing you could do is letting them forget about you as soon as possible and getting off to be with two real parents who would love them better than you. And I couldn't cope with that. And it wasn't fair because it's missing a really big component of like, they're going to never forget you. You're their parent, but that voice wants to make you feel like you're doing it for them. I mean, it's so logical and yet really screwed up because yeah, I couldn't imagine life without them, but I couldn't keep them. I had to go get help. So that the next day was basically say goodbye, take a handful of pills and alcohol, and I woke up 2 days later unexpectedly. They went to foster care. I went to the psych ward at the VA and spent basically 90 days trying to pull things back together to get them back. And everything got better pretty fast. I mean, I'd say pretty quickly, because so many people either drove me places, took me to meetings that I trusted. I still didn't believe like life was just painful. Like there wasn't any end in sight. Like I didn't believe that there was anything good left coming, but I trusted other people's faith in the fact that it might be, and just sort of like, okay, I don't want to drive the car anymore. I don't want to make any more decisions. I'm done. I'm done. And it was a good moment looking back at it, because that was me in control of everything, and it didn't go great. And then since then, everything's gone completely differently, and being able to be part of helping people in significant ways, like getting their kids from through the courts, or help protecting people random ways, or investigations, or stopping bullying, or so many different things that are like overwhelming to be a part of, because I wasn't really useful to anyone prior to that in any meaningful way. I wasn't particularly doing well. Like I couldn't ever keep appointments straight, couldn't set up a calendar. Like there was so many things to go from homeless drug addict. And it wasn't
The
like pot.
responsible parent.
Nobody's a homeless pot addict. Like I'm on the marijuana. It was meth and pills, and like it wasn't good. To go from that to being able to raise kids and keep them alive for multiple days at a time, let alone years, and they're happy, and no one yells in the home, and there's food in the fridge, and it's safe, and there's Lego, and there's geeky stuff, and I love and get along with both all my kids, and it's
and I'm proud of you.
that's really hard. Like we got to rent an RV for the first time and go visit you, and me and my daughter and son, we rented an RV and drove all the way to your property and hung out with you and friends, and like that was super special. I thought we just went to Great Wolf Lodge a couple weeks ago. I got to watch Declan ride a bike for the first time, and learn to read, and daughter's getting ready to drive, and it's like I would have missed all this stuff
100%. 100%.
if I listened to that voice and accepted no as the right answer.
Well, I I am glad you didn't listen to that voice, because I know from conversations with your kids that they look up to you now, and you have provided them that safe environment, and they enjoy their lives, and they're experiencing things that they may not have ever been able to do. And you too, you're experiencing seeing them drive on a quad, or learn to drive, or learn to swim, right? Or learn to fish. And it's like that, as a parent, people don't understand that. It's like that's something that as a parent, I see those and I'm like, man, I would miss out on that. That's one of the things that I think about with my dad, who's no longer here, is that he missed out on his grandkids. Right. And my mom is here, and oh man, she just loves her grandbabies. And it's so neat for me to see her experience that. And then I take a step back and I think my dad missed out on all of those things. Not because he made a bad decision, but it was a lot of decisions. But at the same time, it's like he missed out on all of those things. And I feel so appreciative to have you in my life, and to know that you are making that difference in not only my life as a mentor to me, but to your kids and the people that you reach out and the influence that you have, because you make a positive touch to people, Bryan, and you are so worthy and so giving and trusting. And it's like, you are a good man. And I'm glad that you did not listen to that voice, brother. I really, really am.
I made the mistake once of thinking there wasn't a way out of it, and like there wasn't something else, like whatever the underlying magic of the universe, you want to call it God or gods or Mother Nature, whatever this thing is, there's something bigger out there. And I'm on bonus time now. It's like the end of a soccer football match where all the penalty time accumulates, and now you don't really know but you know that the
Like
official
3
clock
minutes,
stopped,
right?
and it could be longer. Who knows? Because somebody was being a dick and faking an injury. Um, it's all this extra bonus time that allows me to learn lessons like meeting some of my heroes like John Cleese or General Mattis and having both of them tell me how important humility is. And John said, I go to therapy for the last 40 years because it allows me to stay funny. Because if my ego gets involved at all, I'm not funny anymore. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that's really interesting. So by remembering all of that stuff, and instead of trying to get that into put it into a drawer and polish things to look good for Instagram, I decided pretty, I wouldn't say fairly recently, but within the last year or two to just lean into it more and go, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite of what everyone keeps telling me to do and talk about it. So I used to have a funny answer at job interviews. Or like, what's the biggest thing you've ever had to overcome? Or like, what's your biggest struggle or your
Mhm.
biggest weakness? I'm like, oh, chicken parmesan for sure. Like if it's on the menu, I'm ordering it. And it's such a glib, silly little answer, but I've gotten the job after saying addiction, drug recovery. I'm a recovering addict, and they're like, hmm.
Tell me more.
and but they don't know what to ask because there's
Yeah.
HR and stuff. They're not really. They
Yeah.
can't even ask you like how
You
old you
blow their
are, or if you
mind.
have kids, but
Yeah.
you're telling them about drug addiction, and then they hire you,
Yeah.
and
Or
you're
I
like,
mean, you make it authentic. You make it real. Like for job interview, same thing. I remember people would say, like, what's your greatest weakness?" And I'm like, my bench press could go a little heavier, I think. And it's people are like, what? And it blows their mind that they're like, did he really just mean that? And I'm like, no, no, no. But it lightens the mood. And I think if you
yeah,
can see things a little lighter, whether that is in your life or in your business, I think it really does help. And to listen to those positive voices in your mind.
yeah.
If speaking of a positive voice in your mind, if you were to meet your past self, if you're able to, what would you tell yourself, whether that is at any point in your life? Would you be able to listen to your past, to your future self and make changes? Or
Not a
what would you do?
chance. I'm writing a book about this, my life sort of journey. I don't want to call it like an autobiography or a memoir. I'm 42. So I'm at hitchhiker's guide age, and I haven't lived an 80-year life. I'm not like a amazingly accomplished, like a Rockefeller or whatever, but I've packed a lot of stuff into a very short amount of time. And that's what happens when you make bad choices. So writing all that, I'm thinking if I had a time machine and I could go back and tell myself, oh, the worst realization is that it wouldn't matter at all if I had a time machine and went back because I wasn't going to listen or apply anything. I had to learn everything this way. And it's not a fun realization initially because you feel kind of like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. And you don't have to. Like, no one said you need to beat yourself up for understanding yourself. You just have to go, huh, that's interesting. Huh, I wonder if I could change that, or if could I be different because I've learned that thing, instead
Mhm.
of going, oh, I hate me and I don't like that. No, no, no. No one said do that. Brené Brown talks about shame as it's not a good motivator or teaching tool for kids. And really, it's not good for anybody.
Mhm.
Um, Especially yourself, but we don't get taught how to talk to ourselves positively.
Mhm.
Peter Attia is been doing tons of podcast stuff. He's a doctor and like ultra marathon runner, guy's super fit. But he was talking to somebody about negative thoughts in his head, and he said he had an inner Bobby Knight, which sounds
Mhm.
very awful. And he was surprised at how fast he was able to get rid of it once he started working with a therapist to undo years of just self rage, hate. And it sounded like he had a pretty serious problem with it because he motivated himself to perfection
Mhm.
through just beating himself up and hating himself.
Well, I think that that's a testament to the fact that we're all the same because
Mm,
we all have similar problems. Even
yeah.
though you think that life is stacked up against you and everything is happening to you, only you, it's when you have a community around you that will drive you to rehab, that will drive you to your doctor's office. It's like when you're around a community of people that you trust and love you and care for you and are your greatest cheerleaders, you start to realize you're not alone. And
Mm.
even the best of us, the most successful, the richest people, the people with the nicest house, they have their problems too. And it's like realizing that is a big epiphany for a lot of people. Like, I'm not alone in this world.
There are
And
people who are billionaires driving their Porsches down the street thinking about driving it off a bridge. They're going through divorce. They're having a breakup. They're being indicted on federal crimes for something that somebody did to their
100%.
company. Who knows? Everyone has those, and whether they admit it or not, the self-doubt and everything else. But the stuff we most need to share with other people, we don't, because we're embarrassed that we got scammed in a, like, we sent money to somebody we shouldn't have, but we
Right.
don't talk to people about it because it's embarrassing. We don't want people to think of us in a certain way. So you end up having situations where the people you love and should trust the most, you don't tell secrets to, because they're the ones you're worried about, like your spouse or, close family members. And you don't tell them things that you tell strangers openly every day, because they don't have any sort of preconceived notions. And so we get it all backwards pretty fast, and we don't talk about the things that really matter. Like,
Mm.
I didn't realize breakups, divorce, relationships were going to be as hard as they were growing up, thinking, watching movies and TV and like sitcoms like Home Improvement and Full House, and be like, wow, everything was resolved in like 22 minutes,
It's not
30 with
like in the
commercials.
movies. Right.
No. And it's some of the most painful experiences of my life, was going through breakups and just dealing with the trauma of, yelling and fighting and having all these sort of things happen, and needing to deal with it properly, and not having been taught that, because lots of guys never really get taught how to deal with emotional intelligence issues, or
Right.
rejection or anything else. And you're sort of learning it on the fly. But some of this stuff you shouldn't be learning on the fly. Like, you can
No.
cause a lot of damage if you don't know what you're doing and you just go on instinct.
But that's the whole idea of the podcast too. Like when I speak and I'm talking about navigating no's, it's like providing this information because most of us don't know it. Or if you do know it, you don't know how to apply the tricks or the methods to get over it, because we all need that helping hand. And I know that your book that is coming is going to do that as well, because you have this wealth of knowledge and such. And so I want everyone to know that you are somebody that is easily approachable. And how can people find you if they want to find out more about you? And what are you up to? When is your book going to be released?
I should be done with it in the next, I'd say next 2 months, three tops, and then working on publishing. If I have to, I'll just self-publish, because I have enough of a platform. I can either go through website or, YouTube content, but selling books at speaking events is a pretty common thing.
Mhm.
And then they'll buy some to give off to their guests. And so you don't make money on books really, unless you're Stephen King. You make money.
I can second that.
Yeah.
What's the name of your book?
I haven't decided, but I think it's going to be after the action movie ends.
Okay.
So after Liam Neeson gets back from rescuing his daughter, and that he takes his daughter to go meet a pop star and get voice lessons at the end of the movie, and everybody's fine. Everyone's fine. No one's got any problems. I'm like, that's not it at all.
Mhm.
I was a mess. And maybe because he's Irish. I don't know. I don't know what the secret is in this scenario, but I needed way more help than I thought I would. I didn't know how to cope, and I don't ever want anyone to feel as lonely or hopeless as that got me to where it was like, all right, I need to end this, because my kids deserve better. Like, that was the darkest place I can ever imagine. And so if something I can say will keep someone from getting there through stubbornness or just naivete, great. That would be even one person would be worth it.
Well,
That's how many.
I know for a fact that I'm already that one person because of the knowledge and experience that you've poured into me. You've already helped change my life for the better. So I am forever grateful for that. And I know that the people that we know in our inner circle have also been changed by you. And I know that you are giving. And I suggest everybody keep track of it. How can people find you?
Oh,
What is the platform?
BryanSeely.com. I will be doing a lot more content. Find me on YouTube, everywhere. LinkedIn's easy to get a hold of me. If you have tech questions or you have, hey, is this a scam? I get 5 of those a day from random people. I was on Twitter. I'm not on there as much anymore for whatever reason you'd like to come up with.
For X reasons, right?
Okay. For X and Y reasons.
I love it.
Yeah, LinkedIn's easiest. Bryan at bryanseely.com for my email.
Wow.
They can bother you and ask.
You could go through me to find you. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows you, and I know that will work.
Yeah.
Well, I know that our listeners are going to be able to find some kind of gem out of what you've talked about, and I know that looking forward to what you're going to put down on paper is going to be that, because I've heard you speak too, and your message resonates with so many people, and I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud of the message that you're giving to people, and I'm proud that you didn't listen to that inner voice, and you are an amazing dad, Bryan.
Yeah, thank you, Blue. It's every time we get to talk, every time we hang out, it's always just it's a highlight of my life. Hanging out with you guys, and your kids are rad. Man, your daughter's going to be so much fun to watch grow up. I mean, not that they're not both fun, but she is so much power in such a tiny little thing.
Well, my son Dax, he went to school today with a Spider-Man outfit. So he was ready to go.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Well, I love it. And thank you so much for coming on with me, Bryan. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Whatever I can do to help encourage you and keep you going, I'll help find you guests if I can, but I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Bryan. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. Since this is a brand new podcast, we'd love your help to make it even better. So if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.